04 to '09 4Runner. Sunroof giving a lot of trouble. This is a 300,000 mile 19-year-old kid's car, like a friend of a friend type of thing. He keeps a surfboard in the back. His surfboard's messed this headliner all up, and he's got screws shot into it and stuff. So first off, I'd like to explain what I'm doing is never how I do it for a typical customer or even for myself. But when the headliner's already messed up, I'm going to take advantage of that and not remove the whole headliner. But you might as well plan on removing the whole headliner if you do have to drop this out. So the short story is, sunroof was bound up. You'd press the button and you just hear and no movement. So you can see all these plastic chips. That's all the little pieces broken apart. This motor starts with a metal gear, rides some plastic, and basically set that motor down, bring it over the sunroof where I have it now. That's going to run a mechanism here in the front. You can access that mechanism by dropping down your little headliner console, like where your sunglasses would go. And it drives this mechanism. But you see all the plastic pieces and junk broke in there? So it's totally stripped. The cables are no good. Really, actually, this whole sunroof assembly is no good. So if this happens to you, I'd recommend getting a sunroof. But as you can see, I'm not going to be really good at convincing this customer to put a couple $1,000s, maybe $1,000 at a minimum, to get the sunroof operational when it's got a bunch of other issues. And you see it's sitting so low, so I still have to diagnose the suspension issue. But really their goal is just to get it so there's not a huge hole in the roof so that the kid could still drive the car. So this is what I found out. I tried to free this up in the car. I tried and tried and tried with lights and screwdrivers and goofing off, and really couldn't do it. But now that I see exactly what the problem is, there's a chance you may possibly be able to get this done in the car, but kind of depends on where your sunroof is and stuff and how much you're willing to flex your headliner. But this is ultimately the issue. If you look at this mechanism right here, this thing, first off, your sunroof should never be able to just slide because the motor locks it in. But I've taken the motor out. Like I said, you could do that by popping that where the sunroof button is. You can pop that panel down. There's no screws in there or anything. And then two 10mm bolts, you can have that motor out, that one I showed you on the ground. Once that motor's out, technically this sunroof should slide. So if I look at this one, see that movement? This is ready to slide. The issue was this side was bound up, and that motor tried so hard to overcome this thing being seized. That's what stripped all the plastic out. So here's what I found. I'm going to explain the mechanism. If you look right here, you'll notice this black plastic piece is towards the outside of the sunroof. If you look over here, the black plastic piece is towards the inside. This black plastic piece needs to come over. The reason it won't come over, this is where it was very hard to see in the car. The reason it won't come over is this mechanism right here is blocking that. So that needs to come over this way, but this is blocking it. This is really more for the air deflector right there. So this whole thing is so when the sunroof slides forward, if you ever notice, the sunroof slides forward, the air deflector pops down, but it's totally, like, I can move this, as you can see, but what I need to do is get it further forward so this can pop over, but as you can see, it's still hitting. So I tried, and I tried to get that to go forward all the way. I couldn't get it. It took taking this all apart, and what I found was, if you look, there's a little link right here. Let me flip this up out of the way. If you can move that up while you're in the car, you could probably fix it. So watch when I hold that up, and then I may have to do this with my other finger. I think I can do this while taping. Look, if I slide that all the way forward, now the link's kind of out of the way. Slide that forward, and boom, check that out. That black plastic piece came over, and now I can actually slide the sunroof glass forward. If I gotta bump this against something. All right, so I bumped it right up the back of the truck bed. And as you can see, now that sucker will slide forward. And you can actually see the worm drive in there and stuff. So this is less about how to fix your sunroof, more about how to just really get it closed. But you got to be able to get that mechanism straightened out. Now, I'm going to get it back in the car. Hope that helps you. You need one last piece of information. Yes, you can slide this closed, but I've now flipped it around. The other thing you should do, see how much of a mess this is, where the motor drive is, you're going to really picture that motor, and clockwise is closed and counterclockwise is open. So you want to act like you're the motor and turn clockwise. So that means you're going to grab this little spring, this little worm drive. This top one you're going to push to the right, which I've maxed out. This bottom one, from this perspective, right, the way I have it, it's kind of backwards of the car. I'm going to push this one left, opposite. Now when I do that, which is very tough to do with one hand, you'll notice it's actually pushing the sunroof away from the frame. So, you know, when you operate the sunroof, first part of back is down and then back. Well, when you have the motor out, you can shove it forward, but you don't have a real good way to lift it. So take this one to the right, this one to the left, and I might be able to catch it on camera. I'm going to go the wrong way now. I really can't. Just trust me. If you turn those the right way, you'll see the sunroof push away from the frame, and you can get it all the way up because it uses this little secondary track right here, the squiggly one. That's actually how it's going to get the height. So you're just basically pushing it further, except you can't push it with your hands. You got to use the gear. Okay, and then when you see it reach its highest point, these will kind of stop, and then you're actually ready to reinstall it. I put the motor in and everything. The motor will stop it from being able to slide, and then leave the motor disconnected. And that way it can never get unintentionally open, because it's going to get jammed up if it goes all the way back again. Or fix it right. Those are your choices. All right, so sunroof is closed-ish. As you can see, this backside's too high. So once you get the whole sunroof back in and you get all the nuts tight, right? There's all these little nuts around there and some of the brackets. Then you're gonna check. And as you can see, I went too high. That means I actually turned this cable a little too far. But I can fine tune it. I can go ahead and turn it backwards. But I'd recommend, getting this headliner back in. P.S. A note: do not forget there's 4 sunroof drains. Every corner has a sunroof drain. When you're pulling them out, obviously you got to pull them off. But if you forget to put that back in, I can tell you what happens the very first time you get a substantial rain. It's going to stain all this headliner up. Then really, like I said, you should be doing this job with the headliner out. But I'm just going to hang the headliner up the rest of the way. Like I said, Surfboard Boy, he's going to live with a little crease that I caused to save him a bunch of money and save me a bunch of work. So we're good. But I'm going to button this up and show you how to do the adjustment with the headliner and everything in. All right, so perspective, laying back in the seat, come under here, look at that same, where the little gears are. If you look, the cable that comes in here, that's going to the driver's side, so that's the lower worm gear. And then this one up here goes to the passenger side, so that's the one I'm going to work with. And if I was the motor and I turned clockwise, I'd be pushing that spring this way. I'd be pushing that worm gear to the right. But I need to go the other way because remember I went too far. So I need to pull that worm gear to the left on the from this perspective, the top, which is closest to the sunroof. All right, and actually, after turning, I realized that was bad info. This one, which is towards the sunroof, actually moves the driver's side. So I need to actually be working here on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and try to push that to the right on the bottom. Let's see. Ooh, that was the one that was stuck, so that one's tough to move. Let me just demo what happens on this upper one, because I'll need probably 2 hands to get this to catch. So I'm just trying to grab it with the screwdriver and move it like that. Now, as I do that, watch. You're going to be all sorts of contorted. It's very slight movement, but you saw it drawing it down. So you're just going to fine tune it to equalize them. Like that one is actually probably a touch too low, right? And you can see that one's still way too high. Alrighty, so you like it, I love it. Now we'll put the motor back in. And the key to this is going to be getting the motor splined up in there, putting the bolts in, and then leaving it disconnected. And when you're doing that, just make sure you get the motor pushed up good. You should be able to wiggle it around and feel it engage the teeth, and then mostly set it and forget it. And then again, I know it's disorienting. We can do it a couple different ways. You could not plug in the switch, or you could not plug in the motor, but I would probably just not plug in the motor right here. So just shove that thing up there, and then that way, if you plug this in, you still get dome lights and stuff. So there you have it.